Hello for our Sunday sewing session. Welcome to my True Blue crew and to all the replay viewers. Thanks for stopping by to see our progress on the Under the Sea Puzzle Mystery Quilt. I was introduced to Cotton Cuts and their pre-cut kits a few years ago, and I have thoroughly enjoyed my journey. Currently, I am working on 2 of the puzzle mysteries because they overlap a little bit. Cotton Cuts does two puzzle mysteries each year. And so last spring, we started I'm trying to balance all these boxes. Last spring, we started the Flyway, and I am on Team Odyssey for the Flyway mystery, and we have just a couple more clues for that one, so that is fun. But those clues release on the first Friday of the month, so we're about to start October, so you'll be seeing Flyway again really soon. But today, the excitement is all about Under the Sea, and we are in month 3. These clues ship out on the last Friday of the month, so everybody's been really excited this weekend to work on their Under the Sea fall mystery. And that means clue 3 means this is your absolute last chance to get into the Under the Sea mystery quilt. So I hope you'll join us. The link is in the description. Just head on over to Cotton Cuts, and they have given all of the ambassadors a secret code. Well, not really secret because I talk about it all the time. But if you sign up using ANDISEA, then you get a special gift with your clues. So I encourage you to do that. It's a fun little treat, a way for us to give back. And I am on Team Marina for this one. And this time around, Cotton Cuts let the ambassadors play kind of a Secret Santa selection and choose colors for each other. So anyone who was up for the added mystery layer, I chose for Crystal Heart, so you can go see what she is working on. And Sean, from The Guy Who Sews, actually chose the Marina colorway because he knows how much I am a fan of these blues and turquoise, obviously as True Blue quilts, all blue fabric all the time. And that's just my number one preference. I love all the colors. I love making really fun, colorful rainbow quilts. But today we are working with these gorgeous batiks. And I have to keep my pattern booklet, my little tip sheet handy because it has the legend. It has all the fabrics labeled, and we just have to figure out what we are doing. So I've got some pre-cut triangles. This watercolor batik is fabric D. And then we have this nice turquoise, dark navy blue background with some leafy fronds, sprigs there. And this is fabric B. And then we've got this nice navy blue with some dots, and that is fabric E. That will come in a little bit later. And then we've got our fabric A, cream color, white background dots. And we also have our A and our D squares that we'll be working with. And our C, which is this nice hibiscus. Actually, that cut got the flower a little bit better. That is fabric C, and then the watercolor squares again. So let's see what we are doing. We're starting out with our A fabric squares, and I'm just going to lay it out here on my workspace camera. And we are doing square in a square. Cotton Cuts loves this unit. And the other thing I love about these puzzle mystery quilts is that we are not making uniform sized blocks every month. These are, you know, rectangular units. Sometimes they might be large squares, but it really does then become a jigsaw puzzle. Your final instructions are not, you know, 3 blocks across for this row with sashing. They really come together in all sorts of fun designs, which, even though we've complained a lot about our square in a square units, they're a lot of fun. And then we will have the ANDI. So I'm using these for this unit, and everything else can stay here off to the side. And as I get to explain with square in a square units, I love to just crease my fabrics as I'm setting things up. So I will crease that square to find the centers. And then for my triangles, I'm doing the same thing. I'm just folding them in half. And then when that is creased, it can just nest right in the other fabric. And with batiks, it's so nice. You don't have to worry about right sides and wrong sides. You can just throw them together because they really are. Some people, I guess, if you look really, really close in the right lighting, you could see one side might be sharper and crisper than the other side, and that would be considered the right side of the fabric. But I don't see that very often to my naked eye in real life, and certainly not on pictures on the internet. So I just go for it. Whichever side is up when I grab it is the right side. So let me know if you are a fan of batiks, or if you have another fabric that you gravitate towards. So again, I'm creasing these to line them up as my prep. And then I do go ahead and pin along that crease line just to keep myself secure as I'm putting everything together. Let me know what you are working on for this glorious Sunday. I'm glad you are keeping me company, but please say hi in the chat so I'm not so lonely here talking to myself. And that goes for the replay viewers too. Say hi and I will see your comment later in the day or the week when you are watching. Team replay is always welcome. And with these clues, I just zip right along. With my 1/4 inch seam, I'm gonna turn on my iron because I know that will be coming up next. But since I pinned both sides, I can just keep the chain going and take one unit and flip it around. And tell me if you're like me. When I download a pattern, I will condense it as much as I can, look for the key instructions and print those pages out, because I'm old fashioned. I need that hard copy. It's very hard for me to and plus all the digital devices. Like I do have an iPad. I could keep the iPad here and look at the online instructions, but it always goes to sleep, and then you have to dink around with turning things back on. Okay, so I also keep a scrap of fabric handy as my thread tab, and I just run that under my needle in between sections so that I can keep chain piecing. And as I said, we want to press, so I am going to take these squares and press out to the corners. And I got a nice long extension cord, so I shouldn't have any issues with my iron today. And did you know Cotton Cuts also has a once a month live Zoom call sewing event for anyone who wants to join in? Well, hello, Jean from Oklahoma. How fun. She's working on a Dr. Seuss quilt from a charm pack. That does sound like fun. And with your little cat text emoji, looks like you have some Cat in the Hat things going on there with Dr. Seuss. Have Thing 1 and Thing 2 made an appearance? Our guild is doing it, supporting a children's charity that wants I Spy quilts. And so my mom called me and said she has 2 kids quilts ready for the long arm, and could I please get those done? I won't have time for the October meeting, but I'll be able to get them done soon after that. Fun way to use up your novelty fabrics. What kind of pattern are you using, Jean? Are you just doing a basic patchwork with everything the same size, or are you doing something different with your Dr. Seuss? I've seen fun I Spies with this economy square layout where you put the I Spy, the novelty fabric would be in the center, and then you can do coordinating colors for the triangles, and then you could even do a second round of colors. That would be fun. And I've got several sewing tasks this afternoon. I have a customer quilt on the long arm. I got it loaded last night, and I need to spend a good amount of the day. I've been procrastinating on this one. I need to get it done. And then I need to cut a bunch of mini charms for my guild. So luckily I have an AccuQuilt that helps with that cutting task. We're going to do some raffle prizes that have little collections of 2.5-inch squares. So that will be a good stash buster to get some of that excess fabric out of my house. But I always have the best of intentions to use up the fabric that I have collected. There just aren't enough hours in the day, especially when you still have a full-time job. Okay. Oh, we do have, I thought it was just going to be this unit for part A, but we do have another step. So there is the first square. So lovely. I've also seen this kind of unit as a signature square in kind of old-fashioned, I guess in the early 1900s, women would sew these type of blocks, and then they'd have their group sign squares for each other. So you could put some plain fabric. So if you are doing a memory quilt for someone, very popular at weddings to have autographs, then you'd have all the guests write on the plain square, and then you could use the color scheme of the wedding, or, you know, talk to the bride and groom about what colors they would like for their outer squares. And well, Jean, it's going to keep you young. She says she's 80 years old and just came to quilting. Well, we are glad that you have stumbled onto this wonderful hobby and are having fun with that. It's so fun walking through my mother-in-law's apartment complex, and everybody has little, in their entryway, they have little displays outside their doors, and so many quilts and wall hangings in the complex. It's a lot of fun. Okay, and then C and D. Yes, we're using these two small squares. So on my workspace, I've got those laid out. And you can sew them together either way, obviously, because you can turn them around. But I need to then make sure they're positioned correctly with the square and the square unit. So I will do that in 1 second. And this is also the type of project where you can use a second quilt. You could be sewing 2 at a time. If you had another project, obviously you'd have to, you know, stay organized with different fabrics and keep the instructions for both projects clear. But I've just run the 2 squares through, and it would be really nice if I had like units for a 9 patch or something else to put through in between. And then I wouldn't have to use my little thread tab. So look away from the workspace camera for a minute. I'm going to reposition my camera angle so you can see what I'm sewing a little bit better there. That works. Then you can still see the workspace, my wool pressing mat, but you can also see what's going on with the sewing machine. So yeah, I just use a little scrap fabric and I run that through as my leader ender. It's at the beginning and the end of my chain of squares. You know, I've got a really short chain here today with just two items, and we have to press towards C, which is our floral. So I'm gonna set the seam, and then I will press towards that C fabric. Okay, and now I have to lay things out the way the diagram shows it. So I will put my A fabric up there, and then my C. Oh, and I do need to turn that around because this is my D, my watercolor. and the D triangle does not line up with the D square. So that's how we're going to make sure we get that in the right position. So I'm actually going to do it this way so that I can line up. I can see right through my fabric, holding it up so I can see the shadow, and then I can make sure that my, well, do as I say, not as I do. Because when you look through it, you see the shadow of the seam allowance. So if I pull that back, I would be able to see that my seam hits right at the stitching lines of my, I don't know if you can see my pin right there, right through the X of my stitches, and it's lined up on the seam of my 4-patch there. And we'll do the same thing over here. We will make sure that that X is right over the seams. And I learned this in knitting as well. Learn to read your stitches. Learn where those markers are on your blocks so that you can maintain your accuracy. You can get those, make sure you're not cutting off the points by watching where your lines of stitching are intersecting. Use those seams to line things up. Okay. Yes, press down towards those squares. And there is clue 3A. I'm trying to figure out where you can see it on the camera. There we go. Clue 3A. All right, I am gonna attempt to stay organized here. I've got one of our little free gifts was this Post-it pad, which I am finding very handy. And I will put a little Post-it there. I don't trust it to stay sticky, so I'm gonna stick a pin right there, and then that clue can go back in the bag for month 10 when we put it all together. Well, hello, Annette. How are you doing today? Hope everything is going well with your recovery and everything there. Okay, so I got those. And then let's see. We've got this one's going to be a little bit different. We've got our squares that are going to end up in the middle of our unit, but first we need to make a new triangle that has that dark blue at one end, and then, okay, why do I not? B and D. Oh, because, no, I did that right. B, D. I'm supposed to, I am missing some triangles. See, this is why you're supposed to check all of your fabric before you start sewing. Now, there's a couple things to do if you find you're missing things. I am supposed to have some C triangles. C is this hibiscus fabric, and I just had the squares. So I am looking in my and we get an oops kit when you can add it on. I got it as part of my ambassador package, and I thought I had an extra clue one at some point. Maybe that was for something else. So what I will have to do is I need to cut the pieces that I need from this oops kit. And Annette is tired but wanted to stay high. Thank you so much for tuning in to help me get those watch hours. We appreciate it. And Annette, it's wonderful that you have been managing to sew even with elbow surgery, and has stayed on top of Flyway and is ready to start Clue 3 here. And Cheryl, nice to see you too. And yes, she noticed in the video description that there is a Fall in Love with Quilting Club. This has been going on most of the year, and we're in our final stages. We're going to wrap up here with one more month of free tutorials and patterns. So it is your last chance to get in on the Fall in Love with Quilting Club. So check the video link there for some free quilty goodies, different patterns and technique workshop, free on-demand videos that expose you to some other quilters that you may not have met yet. So we do appreciate that. I need to grab, let's see, my rotary cutter is not in arm's reach. So excuse me for just a second. Oh, guess what? I don't even have to do this because I found the pieces I need. They fell on the floor and slid under the chair, so I didn't see them until I walked around. But so I was saying there's two options if you notice that you don't have a piece of fabric you need. You can order the oops kit. And so I'm going to have extra fabric of all of the pieces in, all of the fabrics that are used in this quilt. I've got a little bit of yardage, about a fat eighth, I think, 4.5 inches wide and 1/8 yard cut. So you could cut your own pieces, or you simply email support@cottoncuts.com, explain, I was missing the small triangles of fabric C in Clue 3, and they will get it in the mail to you. So within a week to 10 days, you can have the replacement pieces you need if you notice that things are missing. But please look around like I did. They may have just fallen off to the side, and so we don't have to bother with that. We can get back to sewing. So after that little public service announcement, I have my big triangle E. We're going to put a small triangle C on that side, and then we are going to turn fabric B so that it sits up here. So we're off to the side here on my workspace, and we're going to make a bigger triangle out of these 3 fabrics. So these are all triangles, and they're going to turn into a bigger triangle. So let me show you how that works. So like I said, I'm using the long side of this fabric C and putting it on one of the short edges of my bigger triangle. And for this, I don't need pins. I'm just going to take those pre-cut edges, line them all up, and sew. And Cheryl had noticed the Fall in Love with Quilting Club. I've got several workshops in that series with my little bit different blocks. Those are all blocks that I've designed that finish at 6 by 9 inches, and they use a lot of half rectangle triangles, which is a unit that I have fallen in love with. And so you can get several different free patterns for that in the Fall in Love with Quilting Club. Okay. So I can press these out towards the small triangle, even though it's a lighter color. It's going to make the block lay flat when we get it all together. Okay, so now we've got this triangle, and usually we would want to put something here to finish off a flying geese unit. But we are going to take the small triangle and short sides together, and so that kind of sandwiches this light piece in between those two different dark fabrics. So I am just going to line up the square corners there and sew that triangle. And same thing over here. You can see it on the workspace. I've matched up my short edges there so that overall I have a large triangle. I love working with all these blue fabrics. And there is one of the other things I love about batiks is when they do this kind of multicolor wash effect. Look at, they've got such pretty shades of blue and some pinky purples up there. And of course the lighter turquoise. So, so pretty. And this one also has to press in towards that light triangle. So pay attention to your pressing directions. So I set my seam and then we're pressing in towards the C fabric. Okay. There is our step 2 for section B. Okay. And we will set those aside for a moment because then we come to our square. And again, we're doing something different. This is not a square and a square unit. We are making a parallelogram. So I'm taking these two large triangle E dark fabrics, and we are sewing short side to opposite ends. So see how that is, and see how that is making a parallelogram. Very, very interesting unit here that we are putting together. So let's get this. Oops. I have an odd number here. Oh, that's in my short one. Did I? What is going on with me today? And having things not the right number. I had 5 of these when I needed 6. And I'm looking around and I do not see another triangle. So sometimes, you can get 2 pieces of fabric stuck together, but we will sew this together and we'll look again. So that triangle lines up on that big square. Hopefully I got this leaning the correct way. That's what I was just trying to visually check. Okay, now they want us to press this towards the square. So I will set my seams and then I flip it over and press in towards that center square. And then we have our pretty parallelogram. Okay, and then, yeah, see, we're supposed to do 2 more of those, and I only have 1 blue. So I will, again, look all around, and I don't see, so I'll be able to cut one of those. But first we can sew these together. Join a step 2 to the bottom left of step 3. Okay, so I've got, there's my step 3, and I'm joining this, okay, right, as such, so that our dark blue makes an hourglass shape on one end of the square. And then I need, as I said, I only have 1 of the dark blue triangles, and we'll fill in with our pieces on the other side. But I can do this right now. And again, I need to line up this seam. So I'm ignoring my triangle seam. I'm working with my long straight seam here, and I'm nesting that, even though it goes under another layer. I can pin right along that seam. Get that all lined up. The great thing about these pre-cut kits, I don't have to measure my units or worry, you know, they're cut to size. I'm sewing with a consistent 1/4 inch seam, and life is good. Make sure we can get started under our presser foot there. Okay, we are 2/3 of the way done with this, and we're pressing in towards the square. So you can see how that's coming together. I just need to fill in this other end of that unit. Okay, so we can set that aside and let me find my, make sure I don't dump the iron off to the floor, make sure I can use my cutting mat here. I kind of jinxed myself talking about the Oops kit earlier. If I didn't have to dig into this, I would have some nice pieces to put something together if you wanted to do, you know, some kind of little pillow sham decorative unit. And yes, this is a generous fat 1/8 cut for you, but I need a looks like 4 3/4 square. I'm gonna cut a 5-inch square and cut it on the diagonal and see where that gets me for this piece that I need. Just trim that edge of my fabric. Nice. Inch square. And because my square, the diagonal of my square is longer than my ruler, I'm going to line that both corners up on a line on my mat, and that way I can slide my ruler right along that. And if you want to fold and press that diagonal, so you make sure you cut it exactly. There we go. And now those two are roughly the same size. This one I will want to make sure I cut down that unit because I'm going to have a little tiny bit extra on the homemade triangle versus the pre-cut triangle. So if I put them back to back here, I've got them lined up on the same edge. You can see they took the dog ear off that one. That may be the only difference, but it just is a little bit bigger. So okay, now I can get my workspace back, rotate my machine back here. Okay. Hopefully that little problem solving exercise helps somebody. No need to panic if you are missing something. Either contact support or call or use your OOPS kit that you can pre-order with any of our puzzle mystery quilts. Okay, so again, I'm making a larger triangle. I've got a big triangle here. I'm putting one of the small triangles long edge, and then the third small triangle goes on the short edge. And this is a little trickier, obviously, without the pre-cuts, but we will. I did the same thing yesterday on a different quilt project. I had some different groupings of, they were like 3 plain squares and 1 half square triangle in the corner. And when I went to combine that unit with the rest of the row, I thought that half square triangle was the wrong color. So I ripped the whole 4 patch apart and resewed it, recut the alternate color I needed. And then when I went to do the second row that had a different color half square triangle, I realized that I had just mislabeled the parts. And I had the one with the correct color, but it was labeled for the second row and I used it in the first row. So it was just a long, confusing day. I got everything back together with the right colors in the right spot, but it was just like, oh my goodness. You know, go to all the trouble to fix something you think is a problem and it's not really a problem. Okay, so I press that and then we are doing short ends to make a triangle. You know, you always want to put this as a flying geese unit looking at my workspace camera, but no, we're making big triangles with different pieces and parts. And this one is really, it plays tricks on you because you've got 2 dark fabrics next to each other, but I'm sure that will turn into something really, really cool in the final quilt. And it's so fun. I work on so many different projects throughout the month that it's always a treat to come back to these fabrics and colorways and say, oh yeah, I really did enjoy working on this project with these fabrics. Fun. And we are in these final days of September. Summer is coming to an end. We're into deep fall. Some of you maybe, we've had a weekend of rain here in Arizona, epic rain. And severe flooding in some areas, you know, because the desert, if it rains for more than 10 minutes, the desert is waterlogged and we start seeing the flash floods. So they had crews out that had to do water rescues and all sorts of things in some of the rural areas, smaller towns outside of Phoenix. The streets in Phoenix held up pretty well. I didn't hear of any major trouble, although apparently the airport, the sewer or water mains backed up and there were just some interesting water features that are not normally present. You know, you can see all those crazy things online. Okay, and so then we bring back our main unit, and we're going to piece that right on the end so that, again, those navy blue sections make an hourglass shape. And I can nest the seams, so making sure my edges are lined up. And we're almost done here with clue 3. Okay, last 2 seams here. Come on. Bulky seam got advanced through the needle. And there we have section 3B. Got our 2-tone triangles, our main square, and our other 2 triangles on the end. So fun. These almost look like candy kisses. You know, when you put a square on point and you have the triangles off the edge. Fun, fun. And number 2, we needed to make 2 of each of those. They were supposed to be, let's see if I can figure out which was my, I can't, which was my triangle. Oh, this one. And are we at? It's exactly the right size, so I can pack these up. Again, I need to label this one. That it was 3B. And I've got another, just because I don't trust the sticky note to actually stay stuck to the fabric, I pin that in place. And then these sections, I gently fold them, and Cotton Cuts puts everything in these nice bags that are labeled there, clue 3. So it can go back in its package for about 6 months until we put everything together. So what will that be in like February, March next year? We will see how all of these components come together. So I am so appreciative of those of you that stuck with me here as we did some Sunday sewing at the end of September. Things coming up on the channel. I usually go live on Wednesday nights, but I have some other appointments coming up in October. So there will not be a Wednesday night live on the 1st for sure. And possibly later in the month, I may have to take a break as well with some other family stuff going on. You know how that goes. We can't always stick to our set schedule, but I am having a fun event called Inktober. And I copied this from some of the other artists that I have seen on YouTube and Instagram and everything, where they draw and create all through the month of October. And I have a fun way to adapt that to our quilting world. So I hope you will follow along and be ready for that announcement on October 1st. I am so excited to share that with you. So I hope everybody has a wonderful afternoon, evening, Monday morning, if that's when you are tuning in. But let's go create something beautiful. Have a great day.